Tom Selleck has finally made a confession that stunned both fans and Hollywood insiders. A confession wrapped in mystery, nostalgia, and a touch of heartbreak. The man who for decades embodied rugged masculinity, the mustache detective who redefined television cool, revealed something deeply personal. He admitted, in his own words, he was the only one who could do that to me. And ever since, people have been asking who was he talking about, and what exactly did he mean. To understand this shocking revelation, you have to step back into Tom Selleck's extraordinary life. For generations, Selleck wasn't just an actor, he was an icon. His face on the cover of TV Guide meant families across America would be tuning in that week. His role as Thomas Magnum in Magnum PI turned him into the ultimate symbol of charisma and charm. The Hawaiian shirts, the Ferrari, the mustache, he was every man's role model and every woman's dream. But beneath that effortless charm was a man far more private, reserved and cautious than most people realized. Tom Selleck was never one to spill his secrets easily. He guarded his personal life like a treasure, which is why his confession, made at the age of 80, carried such weight. It wasn't about a scandal or a tabloid rumor. It was about a relationship, an unshakable bond with one person who managed to break through his walls, someone who could reach him in a way no one else could. For years, fans have speculated about the people who shaped Selleck's life. Was it a mentor in Hollywood, a co-star who left an unforgettable mark, or perhaps someone behind the cameras, a figure the public barely knew but who changed Tom Selleck forever? What makes his admission so compelling is that Selleck, the man who always seemed to be in control, admitted that there was someone, just one person, who could truly disarm him. He was the only one who could do that to me, Selleck confessed. And those words were not said lightly. To understand what he meant, let's rewind to the late 1970s. Tom Selleck wasn't yet the superstar he would become. He was a struggling actor, taking small roles in commercials, guest spots on TV shows, even appearing in a Pepsi ad long before anyone knew his name. Hollywood wasn't making it easy for him. His tall, commanding presence and that trademark mustache made him unique, but casting directors didn't know where to place him. He was either too much of something or not enough of something else. For years, it seemed like he was destined to be a could-have-been. Then came Magnum PI in 1980, the role that would define him. But behind the scenes, Selleck doubted himself. He wasn't sure he could carry an entire show. He worried the character would be too shallow, too gimmicky. That's when one man stepped in. The man Selleck would later admit was the only one who could do that to me. That man was the show's creator, Donald P. Bellisario. Bellisario believed in Selleck when no one else did. He saw beyond the doubts, beyond the insecurities. He didn't just cast him as Magnum, he shaped the role around him. He gave Selleck the freedom to play a detective who wasn't just a tough guy, but a charming, flawed, funny, and deeply human character. Selleck later admitted that Bellisario pushed him in ways no one else could. He demanded more from him, refused to let him coast on his looks or his charm, and in doing so, forced him to become not just a star, but an actor. Selleck said it plainly. Don Bellisario was the only one who could get away with it. He was the only one who could do that to me, push me harder, challenge me, make me doubt myself, and then make me better. And if you think about it, that makes sense. For a man like Selleck, who built his career on discipline, control, and strength, it took someone he trusted completely to break down those defenses and rebuild him stronger. But that's only part of the story, because Tom Selleck's confession also hinted at something deeper, something emotional. As the years went on, the bond between Selleck and Bellisario wasn't always easy. They clashed. They argued. Selleck didn't always like being challenged so directly. But over time, he realized that those challenges shaped him. They gave him the career that allowed him to walk away from Hollywood when he wanted, to step into a quieter life on his ranch, and still return years later as Frank Reagan in Blue Bloods, commanding respect like few others could. And then, there's another layer to his words, because when Selleck said, he was the only one who could do that to me, he wasn't just talking about professional challenges. He was also speaking about trust. Hollywood can be a lonely place, full of fake smiles and hidden knives. But in Bellisario, Selleck found someone who was brutally honest, sometimes painfully so, but always real. That kind of honesty is rare, and it's exactly what Selleck valued the most. Even after Magnum PI ended, and Selleck moved on to films like 3 Men and a Baby, the memory of those early years stayed with him. He carried the lessons Bellisario drilled into him. Lessons about humility, about always digging deeper, and about never settling for the easy route. And in Hollywood, where so many careers rise fast and burn out even faster, those lessons kept Selleck steady. Now, at 80, when most men would rather look back on their achievements with pride, Selleck chose to share something vulnerable instead. He admitted that for all his strength, for all his independence, there was one man who had the power to break through his armor, one man who could shape him, challenge him, and, in a way, define him. It's a confession that makes us see Selleck differently, not just as the rugged hero, but as a man who, like all of us, needed someone to believe in him, someone to push him beyond what he thought possible. And in acknowledging that, Selleck gave us a rare glimpse into his heart. He has always been admired for his roles, for the mustache, the Ferrari, the stern but loving father figure on Blue Bloods. But perhaps his greatest strength is this honesty, the courage to admit that even the strongest among us have someone who can reach us in ways no one else can at 80. Tom Selleck has nothing left to prove. He has a legacy carved into Hollywood history. But in his confession, he reminded us that true greatness isn't about standing alone. It's about the people who shape us, the ones who challenge us, and the ones who, even decades later, remain unforgettable. And maybe that's the lesson hidden in his words, that no matter how successful, how independent, or how strong we may appear, every one of us has someone who can break through, someone who can do what no one else can. And for Tom Selleck, that someone was the man who saw in him what the world was about to discover, a legend in the making. To understand this, you have to step back into Tom Selleck's extraordinary life. He wasn't supposed to be a Hollywood superstar. Born in Detroit in 1945, raised in California, Selleck was an ordinary kid with dreams of sports, not acting. He played basketball at USC, paying his way through school with odd jobs. Acting, at first, was just a hobby, something he stumbled into after a drama coach suggested he had the look. But in Hollywood, having the look wasn't always enough. In the late 60s and 70s, Selleck paid his dues. He auditioned endlessly, took bit parts, and even appeared on The Dating Game, where he lost not once, but twice. Imagine that Tom Selleck, the man who would later become one of television's most irresistible leading men, being rejected on a cheesy game show. It's almost unthinkable, but it happened. And those early failures hardened him. They taught him resilience, humility, and the ability to laugh at himself. But Hollywood still didn't know what to do with him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and had a mustache that casting agents often told him to shave. At a time when leading men were clean-cut and boyish, Selleck looked like a throwback to a different era. He was told he didn't fit. He was told to try modeling instead. For years it seemed like the doors to stardom were closed. Then came 1980. Magnum PI changed everything. The role of Thomas Magnum wasn't just another detective. He was charming, funny, and flawed. He wasn't the typical macho hero. He was vulnerable. He made mistakes, and audiences loved him for it. Selleck finally found a role that wasn't about fitting in, it was about standing out. And the man behind that breakthrough was writer and producer Donald P. Bellisario. Bellisario saw what others didn't. He saw that Selleck's mustache wasn't a problem. It was an asset. He saw that Selleck's everyman quality wasn't a weakness. It was his greatest strength. And he built Magnum around him, letting him shine in a way no role had before. But here's the catch. Selleck didn't step into Magnum with unshakable confidence. He was nervous. He wondered if he could really carry a whole show. And that's where Bellisario came in. He pushed Selleck harder than anyone ever had. He demanded that he dig deeper, that he bring honesty to every scene. He refused to let Selleck coast on charm. And Selleck admitted later in life that at times, he hated being pushed that way. He doubted himself. He second-guessed. He even thought about walking away. But Bellisario never let him. Years later, Selleck finally admitted the truth. He was the only one who could do that to me, he said. The only one who could break down his walls, force him to confront his fears, and rebuild him stronger. And for a man like Tom Selleck, disciplined, independent, private, that kind of influence was rare. It was as if Bellisario held the key to a part of Selleck that no one else could reach. The results speak for themselves. Magnum PI wasn't just a hit, it was a phenomenon. It ran for 8 seasons, won Selleck an Emmy, and turned him into a household name. Suddenly, the man who couldn't get a break in Hollywood was one of its most bankable stars. Offers poured in, including one that could have changed film history forever: Indiana Jones. Yes, it's true. Tom Selleck was the first choice to play Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark. But because of his contract with Magnum PI, he couldn't take the role. Harrison Ford got the part, and the rest is history. For many actors, missing out on such a role would have been devastating. But Selleck didn't let it break him. Why? Because he had already learned from Bellisario not to dwell on what you can't control. Focus on what you have. Give it everything, and the rest will fall into place. That lesson carried him through his career, but also into his personal life. Unlike many of his Hollywood peers, Selleck never chased the spotlight endlessly. At the height of his fame, he did something shocking. He walked away. He bought a ranch in Ventura County, California, and dedicated himself to a quieter life. He grew avocados, cared for horses, and focused on raising his family with his wife, Jilly Mack. Hollywood kept calling, but Selleck answered only when the role felt right. When Blue Bloods came along in 2010, Selleck saw it as the perfect fit. Playing Frank Reagan, the police commissioner of New York, allowed him to combine authority with warmth, discipline with humanity, and once again, audiences connected with him not just as a TV character, but as a man they felt they knew. And through it all, he never forgot Bellisario, the man who, decades earlier, shaped him into the actor he became, the man who pushed him, challenged him, and refused to let him settle for mediocrity. That's why his confession at 80 mattered so much. When he said, "He was the only one who could do that to me," he wasn't just praising a mentor. He was admitting that even the strongest men need someone to believe in them, someone to challenge them, someone who won't let them quit when things get hard. In Hollywood, where egos often clash and relationships are fleeting. Tom Selleck's loyalty and gratitude stand out. He could have taken all the credit for his success. He could have brushed off questions about his influences, but instead, he chose honesty. He admitted that he wasn't self-made in the way people thought. He had help. He had someone who dared to tell him the truth. And that's what made him the man he is today. Looking back now at 80, Tom Selleck has nothing left to prove. His legacy is secure. He has given the world unforgettable characters, countless memories, and a reminder that true masculinity isn't about arrogance, it's about humility, integrity, and strength of character. And in confessing that he was the only one who could do that to me, Selleck left us with a lesson of his own. The lesson is simple but powerful. Even the strongest among us have someone who can reach us, someone who can pull us out of our doubts, push us past our fears, and demand more of us than we demand of ourselves. For Tom Selleck, that person was Donald Bellis, and for the rest of us, it's a reminder to never forget the people who shape us, challenge us, and change our lives forever.